Who thinks they've travelled here the furthest tonight? Yeah? Where have you come from, sir?
Well, London, but we live in Sierra Leone.
I can't beat that. We're very honoured that you're here tonight. That's wonderful. And you've spoilt my line. Because we have two wonderful ladies who are new additions to the Band of Light, the little group of us. Lorelei and Annalisa, who are part of the Band of Light America, if you like. And here they are. And they've come over especially from Phoenix in Arizona. Now, my geography isn't good enough to say whether Sierra Leone is further away or not. But right, okay. So thank you both for coming over. And we also have another member of the Band of Light is evolving, and there are new people coming in. And our professional cameraman here, Avi, is also a very close member of the Band of Light and producing wonderful films for us to expand the message, the Joseph message. Okay, so I need to put my glasses on here now. I didn't used to have to, but this year I do. The sanctuary opened about 12 and a half years ago, and the people who came earlier, I've just given a history. But I met Michael and Jane 10 years ago, 2.5 years after the sanctuary had been open. And it's fascinating that the sanctuary is now a centre, and was always intended to be a centre of healing and spiritual guidance. And we now understand both of those things, of healing and spiritual guidance. And what I realized beyond any doubt is that spiritual growth is healing. And from the steps, those that came earlier, the steps that you go through in healing, it has to end up at spiritual growth and acknowledgement that you are spiritual rather than physical. I'm not going to say much more. The Joseph Communications lay all this out in the 8 books that we have for sale outside afterwards. And to me, it's just the best thing that happened to me ever, apart from marrying Sheila. I thought I'd better add that in. I'd have big trouble if I didn't add that one in. It's not in the script, by the way. I'll just give you a secret. Okay. And they cover every aspect. It's like a no-nonsense guide of how you can connect into the divine and how your relationship with the divine can blossom and how you can learn about it. And I think that's what Michael's going to talk about tonight. And so I without further ado, I'd love to hand over to my good friend and colleague, Michael G. Reccia.
I have to begin by sharing some rather sad news that happened to me a few weeks ago, in that a very old and good friend of mine passed over. And John had his positive attributes, like us all, and he also had many not so positive attributes. And one of those not so positive attributes was the fact that he hoarded cash in his house. And I remember standing in his garage one day, and you know how chaps take a jam jar and screw the lid under a shelf and then fill the jars with screws and washers and nuts and bolts so that they're tidy and in a row. On this particular row, we had screws, nuts and bolts, washers, and a roll of £20 notes. And I said, John, they can see these from the street. Somebody's going to break in if you're not careful. He said, I'm not bothered about that. The house is secure. The house is alarmed. I need the cash around me. You believe what you believe. I believe what I believe. And I said, you can't take it with you. And he said, I'm going to have a darn good try. In fact, he said, despite us having money in bank accounts, I've made my wife, Mary, swear that if I go first, she has to take all the cash from the house and put it in the coffin with me. I said, that's ridiculous. Well, a few weeks ago, obviously, he did die first, and I found myself in the chapel of rest, standing next to his open coffin, open casket. And at that time, Mary came in, and she walked by me, and she was carrying a little box about this big, like a chocolate box. And she went over to the coffin, and she put the box in under John's pillow. And on the way out, I said, "Mary, how are you doing?" She said, "Well, how can I be doing? Not very well, I'm afraid." I said, "I hope you don't mind me asking, but what was in the box that you put in the coffin?" And she said, "I've been absolutely faithful to John's wishes. He asked me to take all the money that was in the house and put it in the coffin with him." And I said, "Look, I've visited your house many times. I've seen money in the garage. I've seen rolls of notes in the wardrobes. And in that magical place, I've seen money under the mattress. You can't possibly have put all that money in that little box." And she said, "I'm telling you, I've been absolutely faithful to John's wishes. Today, before I came here, I went through all the rooms in the house. I took all the cash out. I went over to the bank. I put it in my bank account, and I've written him a check." Tonight's theme is one of light, and so it seemed appropriate to start on a light note. Heaven knows what I'd have done if you hadn't laughed. It's on film. Right, we have some serious stuff now to look at. So I'd like to begin with a truth, and I'd like to begin by admitting to you something that's very personal and something that I'm a little bit ashamed of. And I don't tell many people this. And it concerns my memory. And when I was a child and a teenager and into my mid-20s, I suffered from serious memory loss. On a daily basis, I couldn't access the memories that I needed in order to operate correctly as a human being. And the doctors could do nothing. My parents were at a loss as to what to do with this strange child that they'd brought into the world. My teachers didn't know what to do with me. And my memories didn't begin to come back until, as I said, I was in my mid-20s. And I remember distinctly the point at which a chunk of my missing memories came back. I was on the coast. I was staying with my aunt and uncle. And the reason I was there is because there was trauma in my life at that time. And years earlier, about 10 years earlier, in fact, my aunt and uncle had visited me. I was then a teenager, staying with my parents. And I didn't know them very well. My uncle was a warrant officer in the RAF. And as they left after the visit, my aunt stood on the doorstep, looked me in the eyes and said, "If you ever need us, if you ever need to come to our house, you turn up. No appointment necessary. Don't ring us. Simply turn up." "Do you understand?" she said. "Yes," I said, a bit bewildered. "Are you sure you understand?" "Yes." 10 years later, this very psychic lady was talking to me. She knew that I would turn up. And during my visit, during my stay of a few days, I needed to get away. She began to talk to me about life after death. She began to talk to me about loved ones returning to talk to us. She began to talk to me about spiritual guidance and spirit guides. She began to talk to me about the light. And everything she said to me made absolute sense. And a portion of my lost memories came back. The second chunk of memory retrieval happened when I began to sit with my spiritual teacher and mentor, Joan, not Jane, Joan. And we would sit by sitting, I mean we would sit together every Sunday afternoon in this little terraced house, in the front room of a little terraced house in Lancashire. and we would be visited by spirit people. And they would talk to us, and they would teach us. And everything that came through on those Sunday afternoons also made absolute sense to me. And a further chunk of my memories came back. The vast majority of my memories came back the day that I connected with Joseph. I connected consciously with Joseph, I should say, because I connected with him subconsciously many years earlier than that, unbeknownst to me at the time. And when I began to listen to the words that Joseph was speaking through me in clairvoyance at that time, the memories flooded back. And of course, the memories I'm talking about, the memory loss that I suffered from, was spiritual memory loss. And as my memories returned, I became aware that almost everyone I knew, almost everyone I would ever meet on this planet, is suffering from the same memory loss. Loss of remembering who they are, what they're capable of, and the good they are capable of wielding. And of course, that is one of Joseph's principal imperatives, that we regain our lost memories. And at this point, you're probably saying, if you haven't already started seeking spiritually, and of course you have because you're here, probably saying, I want my spiritual memories back too, Michael. What do I do? Give them to me now. How do I get them back? But hold on. As with everything in life, there are consequences to every action. And the immediate consequence of seeking to regain your spiritual memories is automatic enrollment into a very strange and demanding institution, the School of Unlearning. And the School of Unlearning is a place that will turn your world upside down. It's very difficult to attend because you've got to pay attention all the time. And it's certainly very difficult to graduate from, because you graduate from the School of Unlearning by degrees. There's no one graduation. You graduate today, and then you graduate next week, and then you graduate next year. As you get rid of the clinging vibrations, the illusion of the earth plane, and you see things as they really are. So, you're in the School of Unlearning. You're seeking spiritually. What sort of things will come to mind? Well, one day you will suddenly find yourself asking, do I really believe that organized religion gives me access to the divinity that I know is inside me? On another day, you'll find yourself asking, do I believe that prescription drugs and the medical profession are the only means to heal myself? You will find yourself looking at politicians and politics and saying, can politics and politicians ever on this level change things for the better? You will look at yourself as an individual and think, am I truly an individual, or am I connected in some way with everyone else? And you'll find as you go to the School of Unlearning that you become brave enough and strong enough to say to yourself, maybe, just maybe, the challenges that I face in life, the problems that I have in life, are not someone else's responsibility. Maybe, just maybe, they're not someone else's fault. Maybe, just maybe, they're mine. And then you become brave enough to look at the world and to see that the world needs changing. And the ultimate question you ask from the point of view of the School of Unlearning is, can things seriously continue in the way that they are doing? So, you've been to the School of Unlearning. You're in the School of Unlearning for the rest of your life. You've worked hard. Unlike James Bond's martinis, you've been shaken, but you've also been stirred. What next? What is going to happen next. You have got some of those spiritual memories back. And you have absolute bliss and contentment and peace and happiness as a result, haven't you? No, you haven't. Because having gone to the school of unlearning and having sought spiritually to find out more about yourself and how the world works, you find that every day at some point, life is a shock to you. You find that every day at some point, globally or locally, society shocks you, disgusts you. You find that at some point in each day, whereas you might have once run with the crowd now wants something else. The crowd wants one thing, you want something else. And you find that you need to do something. You are separated from that crowd. You've become an outsider. You may not be happy, you may not be contented, but you have the right to feel satisfied. You have the right to feel fulfilled, because for the first time in your life, your eyes are open and you are seeing things here as they really are. The school of unlearning, your new stance on life, will also drive you to understand something else, despite you feeling at odds with so many people and with society and with the way that life is. It will lead you to an understanding of us all being family. Now, blood links and genes ties together, of course, don't they? We have mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and cousins and aunts and uncles and so on. And we share genes with these people. We share their physiology to some extent. And we have strong emotional ties with them. But once you start seeking as a soul, once you start trying to regain your spiritual memories, you become aware that blood may well be thicker than water, but the light within is thicker than blood. And the light within binds everything together and makes everything one. Humans, animals, trees, mountains, oceans, flowers, plants, insects, the chairs that you're sitting on this evening, the person in front of you, the person behind you, the person to your left, the person to your right, the air that you are breathing, the communications we get from the spiritual people who come to teach us, the physical universe, the spiritual dimensions, all reality in inverted commas, all dimensions, everything is one. Which brings us to an important part of that one. Joseph and his soul group. Joseph, the eloquent speaker, the eloquent teacher. Joseph, the ancient spirit. Joseph, who through many lifetimes has seen it all, done it all, and doesn't want us to make the same mistakes. Now, I became aware by degrees of the interconnectedness of things, of the oneness of all things, before I connected consciously with the soul group. And that awareness of that connection came about in a couple of ways. It came about again when I was sitting with Joan on a Sunday afternoon, because after a while, as a medium, you begin to sense a spiritual signature with people. You'll all have done it. You don't have to be mediumistic. You know, when you meet somebody for the first time, you have an immediate impression about them. I like this person. I can't stand this person. And if it's the latter, you feel guilty. But it's actually soul-to-soul contact, and you are reading what is in their aura and in their personal history as a spirit. And the spirits who came through every Sunday afternoon exhibited a oneness of vibrational signature. There was a harmony with them. There was a peace with them. There was a love with them, a reassurance with them, a permanence with them. And their vibrational signature, very different people, was identical, was the same. One evening, many years ago, over 30 years ago, my father had recently died, recently passed over, and I was sitting in my mother's garden trying to come to terms with life, the universe, and everything. And one of the teachers from those Sunday sessions suddenly turned up next to me and said, it was a summer's evening, I sat there in a short-sleeved shirt, and he said, "Look at the fence." So I dutifully looked at the fence that separated my mother's garden from the garden next door. And I said, yeah, it's a fence. He said, "No, really look at the fence." And so I looked at the fence and I opened my eyes psychically, mediumistically. And upon doing so, I could see a blue-white energy flowing through each plank of that fence that made up that separation of the two gardens. "Now," he said, "look at the path." So I looked at the concrete slabs that made up the path that separated the two lawns in that garden that evening, and I saw the same blue-white energy coursing through the flagstones. "Now," he said, "look at the trees and the bushes and the grass and the flowers." And so I looked at all these aspects of the garden and saw through every twig, every leaf, every petal, every blade of grass, the same blue-white energy. Finally, he said, "Look at your body." So I looked down at my hands that were resting on my legs, on my knees, and through my arms and legs, I could see the blue-white energy coursing through those aspects of my body too. And that evening in that garden, that guide kindly showed me what I'd suspected for many years. We're all the same thing. We're all the same thing. Back to Joseph and his soul group. Let's talk for a while about the part of your family that is Joseph's soul group. Who are they? Who are these people? Well, they are spirits like us. They are in reality angelic beings like us. And they have been here and incarnated here many times. They're from different cultures from an earthly point of view. They're from different religions from an earthly point of view. Everything that you've gone through or are going through, they have gone through at one time or another. And they have moved on from the earth plane and yet have found that they are drawn together by a common cause, and the common cause is to get us all out of here and restore the planet while there's still time to do so. Where are they? Where do they exist? Where's this soul group? Well, they exist on a higher vibrational plane. And that's great, Michael, thank you. I can go home now contented. The soul group are on a higher vibrational plane, and I can see that clearly in my mind. Thank you so much. On those Sunday afternoons, all those years ago, often I was taken, and Joan was taken, out of the room in a trance state. So we were sitting physically in the room, taken out of the room to see the workings of the soul group. And we would find ourselves always in the same start position. And the start position was a mountain path. And there would be a couple of members of the soul group standing in front of us, a couple of members of the soul group standing behind us. And off we would set up this path. Has one of them come in? No? Off we would set up this mountain path. On one side of the path was the rock of the mountain, ascending up into the heavens and up into the clouds. On the other side of the path was a sheer drop, hundreds, perhaps thousands of feet. And as you looked across this drop, you could see wonderful, the only way I can describe it is Tolkien-esque landscapes. Beautiful forests and trees and woods, and beautiful blue mountains, and the clouds below you. Now, I don't like heights, and that's an understatement. But in my spirit form, in my spirit consciousness, I could stand right at the edge and look out over this wondrous landscape and think, this is wonderful, wonderful. So we would move on up the mountain path. And at a certain point, always the same point, we would encounter a waterfall that again was falling from a huge height across the path, down over the side of the path and across the path. And again, you would think, well, you know how much water comes from a waterfall, the thunder of the water, you would be terrified. Not in your spirit form, you're not. And we would move up and through this waterfall and discover that the water wasn't water at all. It was light. Droplets of light in different colors, luminous colors. And the purpose of this waterfall, it would fall through you. It didn't hurt. It fell through you. The purpose of this waterfall was to cleanse our vibrations sufficiently that we could elevate them further and connect consciously with the soul group so that the soul group could teach us. So all the heavy vibrations of earth fell away. All the terrible things that we worry about. All the nasty things that seem so important but aren't really. All the baggage that we drag around with us fell away. And we would emerge on the other side of this waterfall and continue up the mountain path until we found ourselves in an alpine setting. Now, by alpine, I can only describe it as the opening scenes from The Sound of Music, but without Julie Andrews, which may be a blessing. Wonderful meadows with mountain flowers in them, with alpine flowers in them. Blue mountains in the background. Low, off-white buildings, low buildings that clung to the landscape and didn't offend the landscape as some of our architecture here does. Buildings that blended easily, harmoniously into the landscape. And there in this communal setting, we would meet with members of the group soul in colored robes, and they would talk to us. On other occasions, we would move further across this plane of existence of the group soul, of Joseph's group soul, and we would find ourselves in an immense amphitheater. Immense. And in the center of this great circle were 3 lecterns in gold. And thronging the circle were thousands and thousands of spirits in colored robes. And it wasn't like a football match here. There was no disharmony. There was perfect harmony. We would take our seats, and sitting with all these people, suddenly there would appear in the center 1 or 2 or 3 speakers. Sometimes these speakers would be from the group soul. Sometimes they would be from a higher vibration. Sometimes an angel would come to talk to us. And they would stand at this lectern, and despite you being so far away from the center of this amphitheater, you could hear them perfectly, clearly. And not only did their words wash over the crowd, but waves of energy washed over and through the crowd too. And there was a feeling, and is a feeling in that group soul, vibration of permanence, of joy, of bliss. And I say it's a communal landscape, the alpine aspect of it, because every member of that group soul also has a personal landscape, as do we all. We're all sitting in the same room tonight, and yet, if we were to look through everyone else's eyes in this room, the view of this room would be completely different, because our view of the room is colored by our past experience and our present expectations. We build our worlds as the spirit people that we truly are. And so every member of that group soul can retreat into his or her personal world at any time. Not only that, but the group soul, should they think a little bit tired of this alpine landscape, let's try something else, can come together and construct a completely different landscape at will, and then change it back if they find it wanting. So why on earth don't they move on? Why don't they move on? They're in such a wonderful position. And their destiny is to join with other group souls, is to move upwards in vibration still further and connect with other higher group souls, to connect with similar vibrational group souls. They can't move on through conscience. They can't move on because they care about us, love us so much that it hurts. They can't move on until every soul on earth has moved up to their level and is going through the spiritual spheres, traveling through the spiritual spheres and out into infinity. Now, note what I've said there, every soul. Because there are factions, there are areas now that believe that ascension is selective. It's selective. You know, if you've been a good boy or a good girl and you're on Santa's list, you will ascend. No doubt about it. And all the rest of them, the detritus, what's left, can stay there in a heap and get on with it. Not the way it works. Not the way it works. We are all the same thing. At the time of the fall, the experiment that went wrong, that changed things here, we were all involved. It's not something we should be guilty about. It's just a decision we made that took us down a wrong turn. We all have to turn around and get back out, and the planet has to be restored. And that's why the soul group won't move on, because they have to help us in doing that. How do they help us? How does the soul group help us? Well, of course, through the communications. The intent of the communications is to reawaken those spiritual memories within us, make us aware of the fall and its effects on us, and change our way of looking at things here so that we can restore the planet and restore spiritual consciousness, not just to ourselves, but to every other soul on the planet. And they also talk to us through in our quiet times. And there should be quiet times. And people say, I haven't time to be quiet. Of course you have. It's the most important time in your day or in your night to be quiet, to send out light to the world. And in the times when you send out light to the world, you are legion. The members of the soul group connect to you and send light to you and through you, so that you can add your light to the world and change things here, not through coercion, that's not the way it works, not through forcing people to take up the way of light, but to produce enough illumination so that those souls who up to this point are in darkness in the way that they approach the world can come out of that darkness if they so wish. It's the equivalent of us all being in a dark room. Somebody's turned the lights out and they've closed the door. And there's furniture in this room, and we're stumbling around in the dark trying to avoid the furniture. Now, if someone puts a light, a candle, a single candle into this darkened room, you can make out a little bit of the furniture. But if somebody puts 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 candles into this room, you can make out the room, its dimensions, the furnishings, and you can make a balanced opinion about those furnishings. What do I think about them? How do I approach them? How do I approach the other people in the world? There is then enough illumination for each soul to examine their path and to say, yeah, I got this right, but I think I got this wrong. And to change from within. And to light their own candle within, to add to the spiritual brilliance that eventually will transmute this earth back to what it was before the time of the fall. So, it is your destiny as a soul, an evolving soul, to one day become part of a group soul. In fact, you are pulled subconsciously to people who are just like you right at this moment. But as you progress, a group soul will call to you, not to smother your individuality, not to make you any less of an individual, but because you find a harmonic with these people that calls to you, that is equal to yours, a purpose that is equal to yours. And you will want to work with them, and you will want to live with them, and you will want to be part of their group, and you will want to move on with them, knowing that they are close family. So all that lies ahead of you, which is a far cry from the state of things here. If you will indulge me, I too need glasses, Tony, and I did need them last year, and the year before, and the year before. Oh, there you are, and the year before that. Yeah, look, here are just a handful of recent headlines and statements plucked from here and there regarding the state of the earth. Extinction. The International Union for Conservation of Nature estimates a quarter of mammals and more than 2/5 of amphibians are threatened with extinction. Our planet is now in the midst of its 6th mass extinction of plants and animals, the 6th wave of extinctions in the past 500 million years. We're currently experiencing the worst spate of species die-offs since the loss of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. 5G. If 5G is built, radiation levels will increase 10 to 100-fold, virtually overnight, everywhere. There will be literally no place on Earth to hide from it. Deforestation. The Earth loses 18.7 million acres of forests per year, equal to 27 soccer fields every minute, according to the World Wildlife Fund, the WWF. It is estimated that 15% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from deforestation, according to the WWF. In 2016, global tree cover loss reached a record of 73.4 million acres. That's 29.7 million hectares, according to the University of Maryland. Random headline. Giant sinkholes appear as wildfires rage near Siberia. Permafrost. Organic matter trapped in permafrost, everything from mammoth carcasses to ancient fruit, contains massive stores of carbon. An estimated 1,500 billion tons, or nearly twice the carbon currently in the atmosphere. As the ground warms, the long frozen material will decay and release the carbon as greenhouse gases. Fracking. Contamination, risks and concerns. Contamination of groundwater. Methane pollution and its impact on climate change. Air pollution. Exposure to toxic chemicals. Blowouts due to gas explosion. Waste disposal. Large volume water use in water deficient regions. Fracking-induced earthquakes. Conflict. Headline. More than 70 million people now fleeing conflict and oppression worldwide. Oceans and sea levels from the BBC yesterday. From mountain top to ocean deep, climate change is devastating our seas and frozen regions as never before. Scientists on a UN panel report that the waters are rising, the ice is melting, and species are moving due to human activities. In a vicious twist, the loss of permanently frozen lands to warming threatens to unleash ever more carbon. And that's just a few of the headlines, just a handful of headlines currently. A few weeks ago, Jen and myself were on holiday. Now, you're going to say you're always on holiday. I've read your book. You're always on holiday, here and there across the UK. Now, it's not true. We only go on holiday for 5 days together, twice, together 5 days, not together as we don't go on holiday separately, twice a year. But whenever we do, because we're away from the strain of promoting the jaws of communications, somebody inevitably uses that window to come in and talk to us spiritually. So we don't have holidays, we have lecture sessions, or we're told off, or there is some learning imparted to us that we can share with everybody. And a few weeks ago, as usual, we always end up with a television that's that big, 50-inch at home, 5 inches in the hotel room. And in addition to this, the reception limits us usually to 2 channels for some reason. And on this particular evening, we were watching the first of the 2 channels that we could choose from. And a young man, it was a documentary, a young man was traveling through Russia, and he was talking to experts and scientists about the state of the country. And he was talking to one scientist about the frightening, terrifying sinkholes that are appearing in that country. They suddenly drop hundreds of feet. Huge crater-sized holes appearing throughout the country. He was talking to another scientist about the permafrost melting and the effects it would have worldwide if it continued to do so. He was talking to a third person about the forests, to a security chief about the forests, one of the biggest forests across the globe, the lungs of the world it's known as. And the lungs of the world are being cut down by unscrupulous business people and criminals just to earn a quick buck. So at the end of this documentary, we turned over to the other station we could receive badly. And there was a documentary on there about a river that was being traced from Scotland down through the UK, an ancient river. And at one point, the announcer said, the salmon are disappearing. The salmon aren't swimming upstream anymore, and we don't know why. And at that point, stood by the side of the television, I saw an angel. Now, angels don't mess about. If an angel comes to talk to you, there is something worth saying. An angel, as I've often said, will not park your car for you. An angel is not concerned with whether you should be with your current boyfriend. An angel is not going to give you the winner of the 3:30 at Chepstow. It doesn't work that way. They don't have that time to waste. And this glorious, glowing being just stood there, and there was a look on his or her. Now, angels are both. They're not a his, they're not a her, they're both, as we are, and as we eventually will be. There is no, is it sexist, attributes to an angel. They are both. And the angel looked at me and didn't say a word. But there was a look of intense sadness and resolve on that glowing being's face. And he or she just hung his head. And there was such a sad resolve there, as if to say, you haven't quite reached the point of no return, but you're pretty darn close. And I don't know what to say about the situation. Now, what I've just talked about is only the tip of the iceberg. So what do we do? What do we do about all this? Can we do anything about all this? It looks hopeless, but it only looks hopeless because we're approaching it from a physical point of view. We're trying to make things right from a physical point of view. We're not physical beings. All the good we're trying to do is applying a band-aid to a wound. We've got to get to the wound, and the wound takes place first of all spiritually. We have to apply love and light to the wound. We have to change our way of thinking and decide that we are going to approach things spiritually, and that there is time to change things, and that if we put enough light in, things will reverse. Things will come back from the brink. I know that because if we were too late, the communications wouldn't come through. There's no point. Why would Joseph talk to us if we're on our way out? There has to be time left to change things. Now, a lot of people, and Tony will tell you the same thing, come to the sanctuary and they say, how do I send out the light? I don't know how to send out the light. Well, we've got 8 books on the subject. And even reading the 8 books, they say, I still don't know how to send out the light. What do I do? Well, we're going to do a meditation here tonight. And it's a new meditation, and it's from Joseph. And I asked him for a light-sending meditation. And we're going to be able to send out light. We're going to be able to bring light into our own lives, into the lives of others, and into the planet to restore the planet. And we're going to be able to do that daily to make a difference. Thank you.
So we're going to take some questions of Michael now, and what we'll do, this is from experience in a past session we had, is that if people put their hands up who wants to ask a question, I'll go to the person and hopefully repeat back the question so that everybody can hear what the question is before we get the answer. Okay, so who'd like to ask a question?
The lady at the front here.
I hear that on Friday afternoon, 1:15, there's a meditation session. Is it anything to do with your...
It's to do with me.
Yeah. Is it anything to do with sending the light out? Or just
It's only that. The question was that you hear that there is a meditation group here on a Friday afternoon at 1:15. Is that to do with the Joseph material and sending the light out? Well, the answer is yes. Everything... I take the meditation. Michael doesn't come to the meditation, and there's a group up to 25 people meet every Friday, and it's you just come. You don't have to book in advance, and that's what we're doing, is sending out the light, and we connect together as a group, and we connect together to the light, and we just unconditionally send out the life as of the Joseph philosophy. I'm sorry, I answered it as well.
No, that's right. That's right. I would add to that there are, for those of you that haven't read all the books, there are meditations in the books, guided meditations in the books. Now, do I want you to read the books? You betcha I want you to read the books. I don't want you to read the books because Tony or myself or any of us make anything out of the books. We don't. I want you to read the books because they're important. I want you to read the books because the message in the books is vitally important at this time. So if you're looking for further meditations, you will find them dotted throughout the Joseph books. And also this meditation, if you can't remember it, will be free on YouTube within a couple of weeks, so you can revisit it and go through it all again. Gentleman here. Oh, sorry.
So I
beg your pardon.
Oh, thank you.
It's regarding the chakras. In
Yes.
everyday life, sometimes, say in a difficult situation, I might send out that light and I do the kind of work where I might be wanting to do that a lot. So I suppose it's how do you protect yourself as well, or are you protected? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yes, I do.
Did everybody get that question? Could you hear the
You
question?
could hear the question.
Right, okay.
Yeah. It becomes second nature to feel that you've been working spiritually, but with the best will in the world, you sometimes forget. And it's extraordinary, we've both experienced it, that how your mood can change in a second. And you're up 1 minute and you're down the next. But you, with practice, think, is this me or is this someone else? And in surrounding yourself with light and closing down the chakras, you can usually find that out because the mood will balance itself again and you'll feel better again. It's important that we do close the chakras. There are certain schools of thought that say that the chakras should be left open. Well, when I go to bed at night, I don't open my front door, leave the light on and say, there you go. Take everything, whatever you want, come in, murder me in my bed, do what you want, it's fine. And it's the same with the chakras. If we leave them open, we are connected, because we're all connected anyway, but we are consciously making a connection via the chakras. And energy flows two ways once we open the chakras. So we can send out the light, but we've got to be careful that people's upsets, depressions, illnesses don't come flowing back to us and we feel that we've taken them on. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Gentleman over here, please.
Yes.
Sir.
You do this meditation on Fridays. Would it be possible, or do you organise other groups to do it at the same time, wherever? So it could be people
The question...
from this country and other countries all doing the meditation at the same time and increasing...
The question is that we do a meditation group here at the Sanctuary on a Friday afternoon. The question is, do we link in with other groups around the world? Are there other groups around the world who are doing that? Do you want me to answer that one?
After you, Tony.
Okay, sorry about this.
I'm in a bit of a rush.
I'm hogging
That's
the
great.
limelight here. I believe there's a whole network of people around the world who are getting together in groups of no less than 8, and that not only are they getting together in a group and healing people, but also they're connecting with each other as groups, and almost like a matrix, which even strengthens it. I believe that it's very exciting, and it's taking place on Earth at the moment.
Well, it will increase the energies, and if you've got more and more and more and
Yes.
more groups.
It's exponential, the growth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Can I just add to that? It doesn't always have to be at the same time, does it? It's just the fact that
No.
we're doing it.
It can be any
Time
time.
doesn't exist, so
Exactly, so it doesn't matter.
does it have to be at the same time, was the question. No. We link in with America, and there are different time zones.
However, personally,
Thank you.
for personal meditation, it's a great discipline. It's great to address the physical mind and the physical body and say, I'm going to meditate at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I personally find it's better in the morning because the day encroaches, doesn't it? Somebody rings you, there's some demand, that there's something you need to take care of. But if you've done it first thing in the morning, you're right for the day. And it gets you into that discipline. And one of the key themes, the key things that my spiritual teacher taught me was discipline, discipline, discipline. As in the discipline of closing the chakras, of knowing what you're doing, of repeating what you are doing at a certain time, and of always going to the God within, the divinity within, and saying, if you're trying to address certain situations in meditation, sending out the light, and you don't know what to do, to say, Father, I don't know what I'm doing. That's the beginning of wisdom, of course, to say, I haven't got a clue, but you do. And your greater self does as well. And to address the divinity within and pull out that light and send it out from within to without to help.
I think it's also, if you fix a time every day, like Michael says, it's a date, it's a deal. The other side, the divinity also, will be there for you. They know that at 9 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, you're there waiting, and they will come. Our Friday afternoon meditations like that. It's like a dome comes down over us at that particular time. So it's making that connection, and time is making it regular is a really good way of doing that.
And saying that is spiritual time. That is time out from the clamour of the world, and it's spiritual time. We always sat at the same time on the same day for the communications from Joseph.
I wanted to ask you a question about your childhood, when you first communicated with the guys, Joseph, and when you talked about losing chunks of your memory and what that was actually like.
So the question was about Michael's childhood and losing chunks of his memory, and what that was like.
What actually you couldn't remember when you
Okay.
came back. And
What
when
actually you couldn't
first
remember
met
what came back.
The guide Joseph, is that right?
The point I was making at that point was that we've all lost our memories. We've all lost I will get through to what it was like as a child. We've all lost our spiritual memories. And so for me as a child, I was very odd. I'm very odd now, but at least I know what's going on. I was incredibly sensitive to atmospheres in buildings, to atmospheres from people. I would have dreams that the night before my aunt and uncle came to see me that day to say, you must come over to the coast, I dreamt they were coming. Now, I had no idea they were coming. And as I say, they travelled the world and they didn't turn up from one year to another. I would dream trivial things like, tomorrow you're going to get a parcel and an envelope. You know, this was before the internet, and those things would happen. I was worried as a child about death from a very early age. Most children don't think about death at all. But at certain periods within my childhood, I would suddenly think, what is the point of me doing anything here? Because I'm going to die and I don't understand that, and it doesn't make sense and it doesn't seem fair. And I would become very depressed by that, and then I'd be able to push it aside and get on with my life for a while. I would see people sitting in my bedside chair when I woke up. and they would fade away. I saw my grandfather astral traveling when I was staying with him. And it was only as a result of understanding what I'd forgotten, what we've all forgotten, that my life began to come together and make sense. It was chaos until that point. And from the point that my memories started to return, my spiritual memories, through the knowledge that was given to me, everything not only made sense, but it put me in charge. And I realized that I wasn't at the whim of the eddies and tides of life, but that I was in charge of my own life, and I could create my own life as I wanted to. And from that point, everything changed. I went into business for myself. I was successful in business. As an introvert, again, I was introverted as a child because of the spiritual energies that were around me, and I didn't understand them. I would stand up, as I'm doing now, in front of a room full of people. I would travel the country giving lectures. I would sit with people and have the faith that somebody would come to talk to me, to talk to them. And they used to talk for 3/4 of an hour, and these things were put on tape, and people would say things like, I didn't understand the names you gave me, but then I checked up on our family in the graveyards and found every one of them. Or people would ring me and say, you told me I'd be sitting in this room, these would be the things that were in this room, and this would happen to me. And this was months ago, and it's just happened. And so it gave me the faith to understand that I was being contacted by beings who wanted to help and to trust what I was being given. So everything changed. And everything changes for us when we start to seek spiritually. But my other point tonight, of course, was that it doesn't make you more contented. It makes you less contented with the world, but determined to do something. Discontented, but thinking, well, I'm discontented, but I can do something. I'm powerful. I'm not ego-centered, I'm spiritually centered, and I can change things. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you.
Gentleman, right on the back.
Why doesn't Joseph contact other mediums? Then wouldn't that not spread the word quicker or faster and get it out quicker and get the message and change things quicker?
So the question is, why doesn't Joseph contact other mediums, as that will get the word out quicker?
Yes, understood. There are the soul group that I've been talking about tonight, of which Joseph is one member, the spokesperson, is one of a number of soul groups that are doing exactly the same thing. It's a group that is concerned for the earth, and there are other soul groups that are also concerned for the earth, that are working through other people at this time to get the same message out. It's an identical message. It's not exclusive to Joseph. Also, the connection between myself and Joseph has been many years in coming, many years. There's a lot of work that needs to be put in to make that connection. It goes back beyond this lifetime. And the connection with the soul group, of which I am a part, goes back beyond this lifetime. For example, in order to meet my spiritual teacher, I had to incarnate with her 3 times, so that in this lifetime we will be drawn together by our vibrational signature, so that we could come together and she could begin to teach me to open that facility as a medium, so that I could make a conscious contact with Joseph. I have memories. I think I've talked about them before in here. I have memories of Egypt when I was a woman. And I was with my spiritual teacher who was also a woman. And this arm wouldn't work in Egypt. I don't know why. And in this life, until my early 30s, this arm wouldn't work properly. And we were seers, and we were seers in a temple. And all I can remember from that time, we were seers on behalf of authority. And in the temple, there were channels. It was dark, but there were channels that carried water. And I checked that out years ago and found that that was the basis of the system in an Egyptian temple. I had no idea. In another lifetime, we plummeted off a cliff. That's the one that I talked about last time we got together here. And we died. I was quite wealthy in that lifetime. I enjoyed it, but I was only young when I died. And I think that's why I'm frightened of heights. But the point is that there's an awful lot of preparation has to be set up to get this to work, and also to be able to push me out of the way so that Joseph can work through me in trance. Now he's told me, and he's said in the books, hasn't he, Tony, that his connection is only with me in this lifetime. But that doesn't exclude other groups. And there are other spokespeople from other groups working at the moment. It's the same mission, but it has to be set up. It's not as simple as in saying, I'm Joseph and I'm coming through you now and I'm going to talk through you now. And also, all the information that he wanted to get through, the principal information, is with us in the 8 books. And he's told us that as well. He's still connected to me, as you can see with the meditation tonight. But he's part of a specific group that works specifically through the band of light. But that doesn't exclude other groups. Does that make sense?
There's a gentleman here on to the question. I'll come back.
You've gone through all the positive results of meditation.
Yeah.
Are there any negative results?
There are if you don't do it
We've
right.
gone through all the positive
Sorry, I beg your pardon, Tony.
points of meditation. Are there any negative points?
It depends what your motive is in meditating. What's your motive? Why do you want to do it? And you should want to do it to become calm and to become still. And also, if you want to develop mediumistically, and you're capable of doing that, if you're set up right, to take it to the next stage and begin to hear and see people and images from higher vibrations of reality. But again, you might say, well, what's your protection in that? They could be anybody. It's your motive. If your motive is to work in love, and your motive is to work on behalf of everyone else, and your motive is to not make sense of this place, but make this place bearable, and end the suffering, and end the darkness, and end the tears, and end the violence, then you're protected. But the reason why we closed the chakras specifically and addressed them tonight in coming out of the meditation is that is also an important thing to do. You enter your meditation and you center yourself in that meditation in whatever your image of divinity is. And then everything else flows along that image. There is no greater vibration than the divinity that you have within you. And that's your protection. And closing your chakras is your protection as you come out of meditation so that you're not affected by anything negative from the world. Is that okay?
So we've just time for 2 more after
Can I
that.
just enhance that question a little?
Yes.
About 25 years ago, I did transcendental meditation. And I had to stop doing it because at the time I was projects manager working for a very large retail department store group, national.
Right.
And I was having to deal with contractors and what have you. And what I found with the transcendental meditation was it made me soft. It made me too soft to deal with well, I won't say what they were, but the unpleasant people that I had to deal with in business. And I had to stop meditating because it made me too soft.
It didn't make you soft, it made you strong. It made you what you should be and what you are. And it is the other people that you are dealing with that are mistaken. You have to be strong enough to be compassionate. You have to be strong enough to know that love is the only way. You have to be strong enough to know that the light is the only way. And it doesn't matter what the others do. They are mistaken. They are stumbling in the dark. You are strong. And that meditation you did made you strong. And the fact that you felt soft and you felt love meant that you had got there. So congratulations on being so strong and congratulations on being so soft. It's what's needed in the world.
I'll take the young...
It's just for you, Tony and Jane. Are you going to incarnate again? Or
Not if I can help it, no.
That's a good point, actually.
just personally, are you going to come back or not? I don't know. Do you have to come back? Have you decided? Or do you have to come do this all again? Or, you know?
Well, that is an
What a
excellent...
horrible thing.
It's an
a really
excellent
good point.
question because one of the key themes of the Joseph communications is that none of us need to come back if we don't want to. And the mechanism is such that free will exists throughout the universe. Free will is a constant. Many religions look at reincarnation and say, you come back whether you want to or not. That doesn't make sense. If you have free will, you decide whether you want to come back or not. And the things of the earth draw you back, draw so many people back. You know, I want the big telly again. I want more than 2 channels. I want beer, I want peanuts, I want to go to the pictures, I want whatever. I want to be successful in business this time round. I want to be successful in a relationship this time round. And we're pulled back. That the key to not coming back is to investigate, is to do exactly what you're doing. Is to investigate spirituality, is to investigate what's next, is to infuse your mind and your soul and your heart with so much knowledge of what comes next, that when you get there, that's what you see, not the pull back towards the earth. So you don't have to come back. But in answer to your question, it looks so easy from up there. Michael, or whatever I'm called up there, you're going down to earth again. Am I? Great. And you're going to try and teach people. Oh, fantastic. And you're going to spend 6 years of your life out of your mind, recovering from the effects of trance and from trance itself. Let me at it. We'll send some people to help you. We'll send the other half of your soul to help you, but she'll be late, as she is in everything, by 6 years. Be all right. And we'll send Tony, we'll send David, who's not with us tonight, we'll send the girls, and we'll send people to help you. Great. Then you wake up as this screaming infant and you think, what the heck have I done? You know, so not if I can help it. Not if I can help it. I'd like to help from the other side, from the point of view of the soul group. But I think next time I'll say, hand the straws out and give me a particularly long one, would you?
I'm feeling a real failure now.
Why is that?
I haven't supported you.
Of course you have.
Well, just one more question, and I'm sorry, it's yours.
Oh, thank you. I've read all the books, I've read them twice, and what I understand, Joseph is saying that the only way that things are going to change on the earth is through the sending out of light. Now, what I see emerging are groups like Extinction Rebellion and Greta Thunberg and all these other things are starting to happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
On a they're kind of addressing it physically.
Yes.
Are they wasting their time, or are they sending out light in their own way?
Did you all hear that question, or should I repeat it? Repeat it. I've read all the Joseph books, and I've read them twice. I understand the Joseph message, and I see on a physical level people today, something revolution? Extinction Revolution, and the girl's name again?
Greta Thunberg.
Greta Thunberg are doing wonderful physical things to make change. Are they wasting their time?
No, because the light that we send out enflames and illuminates souls such as the ones you've just been talking about. And so it begins in the spirit. The change begins on a spiritual level and then begins to manifest on a material level. That's exactly the point of the Joseph communications, to say you begin to send out the light, you join together to send out the light, and then you will begin to see results here and there on a material level. But the key to it is to begin things on a spiritual level, to understand that material changes are transient and weak unless we tackle the core problem first on a spiritual level. But then it begins to bloom and to illuminate around the world and to brighten up the climate and to change the pollution back to clearness and clarity. So no, they're not wasting their time. They're not wasting their time. It's a two-pronged attack as well, isn't it? Not attack is the wrong word. It's a two-pronged project. It's a two-pronged operation. You send out the light. You send out the light, particularly to these people who are doing good, and you strengthen what they're doing. And then they are sending out the light in their words, in their actions. They may not know it, but they are sending out the light too. Because whenever you work to create harmony, whenever you work to create beauty and peace, your chakras open and the light sends out from you. And you become a light in the darkness. So those people, God bless them, are lights in the darkness. Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple Computers, used to say that he wanted to dent the universe. In other words, he wanted to make such a difference and impact on the world that it would never be the same again. What we are each tasked with is taking the dent out of the universe that we created so long ago at the time of the fall. We're working to restore this world. We're working to restore people's memories. And never doubt every day of your life that you are making a difference. Of course you are. As Joseph says, one person working for the light has the power of 1,000, 1,000,000 working for the darkness. So let's get that dent out of the universe. Let's remember that we are powerful, angelic beings, and let's love everything better.
Michael, thank you.